Hello, YouTube.
YouTube, hi.
This isn't actually true, but I'll say it. I had a New Year's resolution to start stream on time, and I'm 0 for 1, so I guess I'll just stop.
Hey.
Might as well give up
Might
on
as well just give up on all of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. So I'm thinking, YouTube, hope you guys are doing well. Good to be back with you. If you haven't already, if you're watching the replay of this, hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. Johnny, are you able to pull up Instagram? I meant to look at the end result of the poll that you put up.
I just typed it in.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I typed it in the wrong game. But yes. 63%.
Sweet. Josh, I like your backdrop. It looks very nice.
Oh, wait, what's my backdrop? Oh, yeah, these are all the plants. Oh, yeah, we can turn on the light. These are all the, oh, no, maybe not. These are all the plants my mom and sister have, like, purchased over the past years. They've become plant parents.
Aww.
We love that.
Yeah.
Dang, we're gonna have to go quick today.
Yeah, there's enough.
There's a lot. We don't have to necessarily touch on everything, and part of it is I just threw a lot more notes in the show notes because I felt like that'd be a good idea to actually put notes in the show notes. So, Josh, I like your addition of the 12-team playoff because that's
Thank you.
especially. I knew it wasn't great, but now considering what happened in the Rose Bowl last night, I'm like, ooh.
Right. That's the thing.
No, it's probably a little different, but considering like some people would play in some, but regardless.
Yeah, and that's my best approximation. I'm going off a mixture of Sporting News did a mock poll, or they did a mock version of it, but it was the day before the conference championships. And so they were like, "Oh yeah, it'll be Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC getting the buys," and I'm like, "No, it will not."
Well, I can rearrange something for you because it would be based on the playoff, but you have the. Hang on, I'll do some quick rearranging because it's just.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yeah, realistically.
I feel like I had a million go to jail things these last 2 weeks, and I can't think of any of them off the top of my head right now.
I think that's.
I always have to go back to Twitter.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Close enough because again, I think the point will stand that this would not have been as fun. As fun to watch.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember? Did I text you guys about somebody that I thought needed to go to jail?
Not in our group.
Dang. Oh, I know who needs to go to jail.
I didn't find that, but I found a different thing that I'll send you. Completely unrelated. Really good.
Oh no.
Really good video content.
No way. There's no way.
I don't think there's any way either, but it's still hilarious. Like how would you not wake up to that?
You know, some people are good sleepers. Some people are just good sleeping.
Oh, you know what we should pick? For picks of the week, ignore what I put. Let's do the FCS championship.
Oh, yes.
Much better.
Much better. Which that's in Frisco too, right?
Because we still already all picked Georgia, and we all probably still agree with that.
Yeah,
right?
I was just going to do points, but that's kind of lame. Yeah, let's do...
Yeah, that's lame. I mean, go Frogs. Go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go Hypnotists.
We can still talk about the game, certainly, but...
I doubt that Georgia's going to take them lightly, so...
My ticket's just me. Oh. $100 a ticket I probably could have gotten. If I had jumped on that, I could have gotten it.
Gosh, I wish we would have actually gone to the Cotton Bowl, because that would have been insane.
Gosh, yeah, right? I was like, man, this is the game I could have gone to.
Yep. for $2.
That game was awesome.
Yes, it was.
That was
Beautiful game.
that was the biggest choke job I've ever seen, and we're Buckeye fans. We've seen some pretty big choke jobs, and that took the cake.
Yeah, that was not great.
Oh, I beg to differ.
Well, yes.
Incredible.
Yes, it was. It was incredible. Depends on your point of view, but yes. I'm in agreement with you.
I am good to go.
All right, I think I am too.
Yes, I'm good to go.
All right.
No, for not installing updates, don't do this to me, Audacity. We're fine. We'll live. Okay, I'm good.
Good? All right, recording.
Hang on, I think my wife's organizing the closet directly on this wall. Maybe I can see if she can
Love that.
organize it.
I can't hear anything.
Hang on, let me see if it's picking up. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined, as always, by my good friends Josh and Johnny. Guys, Happy New Year. It is 2023. We are back. Josh, Happy New Year. Good to have you back. It's been a while since we've been able to have you on the show, but how are you doing, man?
It is good to be back. You know, I wrote that paper. I think I flew out the next day up to see my parents. And I think that next night I slept for like 11 straight hours. And we are alive. We are good. And it is good to be, I guess, not seen because it's a podcast. It's good to be heard.
Yeah. And you can see us if you dare. If you tune into our YouTube live streams, we encourage you to at least subscribe. We have fun videos coming out, like the 14 players drafted before Giannis, because spoiler alert, Giannis was drafted with the 15th pick. So there was a lot of teams that could have had Giannis, and your team might have been one of them. So there's a quick plug. But Johnny, what's up, man? Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Happy New Year. Sad that college football is over. Happy that the Cavs have Donovan Mitchell on his team.
Oh my gosh.
That dude's unbelievable, unreal. Sad. Based on what happened last night in Monday Night Football, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So mixed emotions.
We'll actually start with that. I'm doing well as well, but let's jump right into that, because yes, we've got a long slate of things we want to talk about today. It's a new year. We've got the college football playoff semifinals. We've got the last week of the NFL. We've got Donovan Mitchell dropping 71 points for the Cavaliers. But Johnny, you touched on it. A very scary situation on Monday Night Football. And look, we're recording on a Tuesday night, so I'm not going to assume what's coming in the next few days. But the situation with DeMar Hamlin is really serious, and we just want to talk about it right at the top of the show. Just number one, that's the most important thing. Like, yes, we're going to talk about sports and have fun, but the most important thing is about him and his health. And we are certainly continuing our prayers for him, for his family, for the players, for the fans that were in attendance, and what was a pretty shocking scene. But guys, I'll kind of just open it up quickly and get to hear your thoughts on this. But yeah, really scary situation. He was. I'm sure I don't need to explain what happened. I'm sure you're following. It's been all over the news. Our prayers certainly with him.
Yeah, this is one where, and I think you guys can agree with me as well with this one. This injury felt different, and as someone who has not played sports, especially not at a professional level, there's a certain, I remember as a Steelers fan seeing the Shazier injury, or seeing any number of, Kevin Ware or any sort of injury within other sports. And usually there's a bit of a shock or oh my gosh, like a bit of a recoil just naturally. And you kind of shake it off and you move on. Even if it takes maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I'm trying to remember how long the response took, from beginning of Shazier injury to finally maybe resuming play. But regardless, this injury felt so much different. And I tuned in, to be fair, about 20 minutes past the ambulance leaving. we were out with family, didn't realize, and so we tuned back in as soon as we could. But looking at how the players were reacting, looking at even how the coaches were reacting, this was a much more serious situation. And just from the fact that it it rattled these players in a way that I don't see players rattled. They've all dealt with injuries. They've all dealt with the strain and stress of having to play multiple games, especially this late in the season. And this was one step above that. And I won't, speak forever on this, but the reality is I think it's moments like this that really highlight the importance that sports and athleticism and local pride and all of those things are very important. But at the end of the day, these are human beings, and they're human beings worth being valued. And when something bad happens to one of their not just teammates but brothers, you don't just restart play. This was something where you could see no player wanted to play that night. No player wanted to resume. No coach wanted to coach. I could probably say that most of the fans in there didn't want to be there at that moment and watch a game go on like nothing had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm Bengals fan. You guys know that. Super excited for this game. One of the biggest games maybe in a decade.
The most combined wins of two teams in any Monday Night Football game ever.
This was a hyped game.
Yeah, hyped game. It started off meeting expectations early on. The crowd, I've never seen Paul Brown look like that for a regular season game. Really excited. Bills fans were super excited. It made me, the only thing, and I don't like comparisons in this situation, the only thing that even remotely compared in my mind was the Euros a year ago when Eriksson went down for Denmark with a cardiac situation and he went down on the field. And in that moment when the Danish players surrounded him and he was their brother, and especially in that moment, and they were doing everything they could to protect him, and the medical personnel did a wonderful job. Obviously, he's well and playing for Manchester United right now. And so right now, praying and hoping for, obviously that would be miraculous for DeMar, and praying and hoping for similar recovery. And obviously no two situations are the exact same thing. It just kind of took your breath away, and you couldn't take your eyes off of the field, especially what you said, Josh. The immediate reaction of the players. I do want to just, our focus is on DeMar, and we want him to get well, and we're praying for him. He's still in critical condition. I'm sure it'll be all over based on what other further updates you guys get, whatever you get your news based on when this podcast comes out. There really hasn't been a huge change since the game itself. But I do want to give some shout outs, because in spite of really terrible situations, I thought last night was a very poignant, a very incredible moment of togetherness that I thought really was very, very cool. The medical personnel did a fantastic job. They were out there immediately. He is in good hands at UC. They are the state of Ohio, but specifically UC there is brilliant at what they do. He's in the best of hands. They did a wonderful job. The players did a wonderful job surrounding him, creating that human barrier, that human shield. To even be remotely thinking about that in that moment is great. The coaches, I'm not going to speculate what the NFL did or didn't do. Zach Taylor did a wonderful job with Sean McDermott of absolutely not. We're going to our locker rooms. We're not even thinking about playing right now. I'm not even posing that question to my players. This is not happening. The Bengals fans, and Bills fans in that stadium, you could sense that everyone understood the gravity, the seriousness. There was just dead silence. I can't imagine even being there. but every story that I hear is just the humanity and people coming together to support one another and love one another and pray together in that moment for Damar and that he would be doing well. If you know, obviously encourage everybody who listens to be praying for him. Really cool thing that's been happening on Twitter is Damar's charity for the toy drive. I believe it's over $4 million now.
It's over 5, at least as of this
Over
recording.
5 now.
Oh.
Okay. So, I mean, it just keeps going up. So if there is something that, like you would like to do something kind of concrete, that's kind of an incredible thing that people are passing around right now to be, in this time when, we're just hoping the best for Damar to give in a small way to a cause that he really cares about. I believe it's a toy drive for underprivileged kids, and where his mom works in Pittsburgh, and he helps out in the surrounding areas in that way as well. So if there's something that you would like to do, I definitely would encourage that. If you like doing something specific, you can find it on Twitter. That's where I found it. It's a GoFundMe. Make sure it's an accurate one. I know his agent's been sending it out, and other Bills fans have been as well, Bills and Bengals fans. But I thought it was cool to see everybody come together last night, and even today in the aftermath. And so just praying the best for him. When it comes to the game itself, yes, those results matter when it comes to football. We're just hoping for the best for Damar, and the rest of that will be sorted out later. They're not playing that game this week. I really doubt they play it at all.
Yeah.
They'll probably either give it a no contest or a tie, would be my prediction. If you want to figure out what goes there, does that affect seeding? Sure. Who cares? They just need to pick one of those options, whatever they deem best and fair, and move on, because the game just can't happen, shouldn't happen.
No.
And the focus should be on Damar, and then supporting the Bills and Bengals fans and players. Because I can't imagine what they're going through right now, seeing their brother there going through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Johnny, thank you for bringing up the fact about the toy drive. We'll go ahead and put the actual link to that toy drive in the description of this episode, so feel free to check that out. We can kind of we'll do the work on our end to make sure it's the actual link. No, we're not trying to get scammed here, but that's an awesome charity, and it's cool to see as a result of a really horrible thing that there's so much good happening from it. So that's been good to see. Guys, thanks for your thoughts on this. We're, again, we'll say it again, continuing to pray for him, for his family, for his teammates, for everybody involved in this situation. And I echo what you guys say. So thankful for the many medical personnel who were ready, did their jobs exceptionally well, quite literally saved his life. So we're thankful for those individuals as well. Well, there's really no good way to transition from something like that to college football. Again, I'll just kind of wrap this up by saying, we're going to sit here and talk about sports because that's what we do on this podcast, but don't hear it wrong that this right here, what we just talked about, that's the most important thing going on. And we'll obviously, like you, we'll continue to monitor and praying for a good result in the end. But we did have a couple of college football semifinals. From a neutral perspective, and mind you, we are three diehard Ohio State fans, and we are not neutral. From a neutral perspective, you just witnessed the two greatest college football semifinal games back to back, or at least as a collection, a single year of semifinals that we have ever seen. And we're going on, I believe this is year 9.
9. I'd say based on how we've done the 14 playoff, I think this is the best sets of playoff games, period. Like, I think it was the best matchups, period. There was no blowouts. There was no guarantee that any of the 4 teams would win their respective game at any. Sorry, I'm gonna not fiddle with all of the things on my parents' fancy desk. No, you're absolutely right, Aaron. And I'd say maybe not one farther, but just to back you up, I think this is probably the best seeding that they have done in the 4-team playoff era. No team had a blowout. I think every both victories were within a score. Like, this was if you wanted to have like a highlight of why, if you wanted an example of why we keep the 14 playoffs, I think this was what you saw this past weekend. This was the exact reason why some people are still pushing for keeping that 14 playoff. It was fantastic games.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly one of them. We'll get into that specific aspect, but you're right. Outstanding games. Just as a recap, TCU knocks off Michigan in a wild shootout. 51-45, the Horned Frogs using 2 pick sixes to help them get all the way to the championship game, where they will face Georgia. Georgia escapes with a comeback victory over Ohio State, 42-41. Ohio State had a chance to knock down a game-winning field goal, albeit from 50 yards. They could not do it. So
you think Stetson Bennett has like a Hollywood career? You think Stetson Bennett's had like a really cool Hollywood career? Because they didn't really talk about it during the game.
Yeah,
I don't know nothing about Stetson Bennett's histoy, his rise to fame.
Right,
Was he a walk-on at some point? I don't even remember.
I feel like it wasn't talked about. Oh, man. He did throw for a career-high 398 yards. So guys, I'll just kind of open it up because really there's a lot to dive into on both games. Certainly, we're Ohio State fans, so use this time to vent. I still have nightmares when I see replays of that field goal, and it's hard not to see replays of that field goal. It's just all over social media.
It was the first event of 2023.
It quite literally. Like, what just a horrendous start to the year. Okay, question for you guys.
Tragic.
Yeah, how did you guys celebrate the New Year? Well, Josh, maybe this is different because you're in Central Time, but maybe just for Johnny, did you guys even say Happy New Year at right at midnight?
No.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Right an hour
the year was over.
Everything. Yeah.
The first second of the year was over. It was over. Let's move on to 2024.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this year. It's
Even
done
years only.
already. Yeah.
Ohio State does better in
Even years. And years
Yeah,
ending
say
with
that.
year 4 specifically, because that's our title is 2014. So.
That's what I meant.
By the way, 20 years to the day of the 2002 season, 2003 Fiesta Bowl championship for Ohio State. So there's some fun memes. 20 years ago to the day, double overtime victory over Miami. Yes, it was. No, it was not pass interference, but you know what? It was offensive pass interference when Miami had the ball. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
I can start. I'll start with some positives as to the Ohio State game. I think we saw Ryan Day finally come into his own as far as unless he had someone else calling plays, because I know that.
No, he didn't.
Okay,
he didn't.
So that's him. I was gonna say, because I remember Herb Street said on College Game Day the next morning or whenever that Ryan Day's planning on giving that play calling as of next season.
Cliff Kingsbury.
And
I don't want him, Aaron.
Okay,
I want him nowhere near my team.
just offense though.
Nope.
offense.
No.
Okay.
They'll have
Not even as a treat.
They'll have 2 great quarters and have a meltdown in the second half.
All right, fair enough.
But the reality is, Ohio State was out both wide receivers, essentially, and we can talk about that in a second. Both running backs, tight ends, and like another 2 or 3 key players. He had no weapons. He had to run.
Yeah.
And he did. And there was daring play calling. Those players who were on the field were prepped enough and comfortable enough in what they had to do that, CJ Stroud was able to make things happen and was 1 kick away from making it all happen with no weapons. I think that is one of the most impressive things about this team, especially after what ended up being a meltdown at the end of the Michigan game. Like, this was from a play calling perspective, from an offensive perspective, all the things we've been talking about with CJ Stroud and with the offensive of like, they can do things. There just seems to be no confidence in their ability to pull it out. There was great execution. There was great, play calling, great playmaking. Gosh darn it, don't call him Kirby dumb. He caught us on that stupid.
Well, some assistant did up in the press box.
Did. And now that's where all the message boards are blowing up about how somehow Georgia got access to Ohio State's private practices, and I'm like, okay, but just Kirby smart. Kirby Smart did a smart thing.
Yes.
They have guys up there for a reason. It also looks a little bit obvious. But anyway, I think as far as a positive, I think that was a great end to the season. There was not a blowout. We covered. at the very least we covered, and now we can yell about Jim Knowles for like another 45 minutes. But I think as far as the offensive goes, there was probably some dumb plays here and there. I was just so impressed and so happy with how it ended up turning out. I think overall Ryan Day really played like his job was on the line.
Yeah.
Coach like his job was on the line.
Josh, if you would have told me Ohio State would put up 41 against Georgia, I would take that every day of the week.
Yes.
And twice on Sunday. And I would probably tell you, wow, Ohio State won. Now, I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because the defense has not been good. And we can get into that because, Johnny, I know you're about to go off.
Whoa, did Georgia put 65 on us?
Yeah, right. Well, Georgia did put 42. As much as the targeting played into it a little bit, or the targeting, not targeting, Johnny, you can get into that. I'll let you get on your
There's a few
soapbox.
plays here and there that would, if we had Harrison out there, could have translated into some yard gains that would have ended up a touchdown or a closer field goal and putting us up before we even had to worry about getting within field goal range for that last drive. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I will say, but yeah, given the weapons, given the lack of weapons he had out there, I think it was great.
It's a different game with Marvin Harrison in there. I'm not going to argue
It absolutely is.
Here's the thing about Jim Knowles, because all Buckeye fans are killing Jim Knowles. And to a certain extent, so am I. Here's the thing with Jim Knowles. And it took Jim Knowles a lot of time at Oklahoma State to develop into the kind of coach and the kind of defense that the Cowboys had. Now, for reference, part of it is Oklahoma State's not recruiting to the level of Ohio State. So let's be very clear, Jim Knowles inherited much better talent at Ohio State than he did Oklahoma State. Part of his job was just getting the talent in the door. Although, I'm not sure how much Jim Knowles really recruits. That's a whole different discussion. But just numbers to back it up. Jim Knowles was with Oklahoma State from 2018 to 2021. The year before he got to Oklahoma State, the Cowboys allowed 29.4 points per game. That was 85th of 130 teams. In 2018, they averaged 32.5. They actually got worse. They were 97th. But then in 2019, averaged 26.8. In 2020, averaged 23.5. Until finally 2021, they averaged only 18.1 points per game allowed. That was 9th in the country. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more patient as a Buckeye fan, like give it a year or two, and we'll have this thing together. The problem is you had the best wide, and now I know eventually two of your top wide receivers were out. But the problem is, if you're Ohio State, you had the best wide receiver room in the country. You may very well have had the number one pick in the draft in C.J. Stroud, who balled out of his mind. That's going away. I know Marvin Harrison is still going to be there, and some of those young receivers, they'll be excellent.
Yeah.
But you almost feel like you missed the window a little bit just in terms of some of the talent you had on offense. So that's part of the problem. You needed Jim Knowles to come in and give you those 18 points per game right away. And instead, you're left with the bad taste in your mouth of two crushing defeats in different ways. The Michigan way just crushing in the fact that Michigan ran over you again. The second one, and the fact that you ran cover 0 up 14 against and put a safety on a wide receiver that runs a 4-2. The reason why I'm not personally freaking out about the targeting is because I have more of an issue with that, and I point to that more as the reason why Ohio State couldn't get the job done. But Johnny, I know you've got some thoughts on all this, so over to you.
We'll start with the positive. First off, well, I guess I'm not starting totally positive.
We'll start with the mediocre.
Every time I've watched ESPN, Fox, or any college football analyst over the last 2 years watching CJ Stroud, they constantly are taunting and making fun of Ohio State fans for, you guys are so ridiculous. Why do you keep yelling for CJ Stroud to run? Look at his yards per game. Look at his stats. That's why. That game is exactly why, because you know he had it in him. It's devastating when he does it, and it's one more aspect the defense has to account for that can kill them. That last drive specifically. Oh, I nearly almost cried when he ran for a first down the first time, and that was in like the second quarter. We knew he had it in him. And it felt like the coaching staff was either telling him not to, or he just was hesitant to. We'll never know. We'll never have the answer to that. But I just was so offended by that the whole time. We're like, listen, we're not saying he shouldn't throw the ball a lot. We're saying there's 20 yards of green grass. Go get 10 of them and slide. I'm not even saying take the shot. He did that. He was brilliant.
Yeah.
He deserves zero criticism, zero blame in this game. Ryan Day deserves almost no criticism because overall he is the head coach. He is responsible for the defense as well. So I can't give him no. But he called that fake punt. It was going to work. He played. Here's the thing with Ryan. It made me happy to see him so energetic, so emotional, so invested in the game, so loose, not tight. It just you kind of watch that game and you're like, I forget who said it. Ohio State lost to Michigan because they played Michigan, not football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They played Michigan, not football. And in this game, they played football. And they played the style of football that Stroud and Day love to play. And that doesn't mean, Michigan's not a better team or they wouldn't have won. But Ohio State played so tight in that game. And it was so tight. And you could sense that just trickle down from Ryan Day to the rest of the coaches and from the coaches to the players to the point where when Michigan got one backbreaker, the game was over. They mentally couldn't recover from it. Georgia was sending haymakers, and Ohio State kept getting off the mat. They did not give up. I was proud of this team in this game. It was not the result I wanted, obviously. Ruggles can absolutely make that kick. I mean, what did he make earlier in the game? Like a 48-yarder?
48, yeah.
He had never made a 50-yard field goal, but he's made a lot of 45-plus. So you thought it would,
Right. He clearly has that in him. He overswung for it, which is what kickers usually do, which makes them miss on the long kicks, rather than trusting themselves and just kicking the ball how they normally do. And he put too much, tried to overkick. I'm not going to get into that. He should have made it. He didn't lay off the man, though.
Yeah.
What that made me, I was proud of this team. They did not give up. They kept getting up off the mat. They played free and fun. And it just, in the back of your mind, you're like, why did it take the playoff semifinal to see this from this team? Oh, it's so frustrating. And Aaron, there was one point in the game, and the only point in the game, a corner actually turned around and played the ball. And I was screaming probably the loudest I did the whole game and said, thank you. Praise the Lord. He knows where the ball is. If you've watched Ohio State football for the last 3 years, corners never identify the ball. It's awful. And so, I'm sorry, the coaches on the couch were actually right about Ohio State all year. CJ Stroud needed to be running the ball at times, limited, but on scramble drills, he needed to run the ball. Ryan Day needed to be true to himself and play free and fun, not obsessed with who you were playing on the other side of the ball. I know I sound like a hypocrite with that when it comes to Michigan, but you have to play your game. And third was our secondary's trash. They are terrible, and I don't see a quick fix there. Aaron, I hope you're right. I hope it slowly gets better. But Jim Knowles also got paid $2 million to fix that immediately.
Yep.
So I don't have a lot of sympathy for someone who says he would fix it, continued to say he would fix it, and was paid to fix it. I don't have an immediate answer for Ohio State there. Last point on this game, Ohio State definitely wins if Marvin Harrison doesn't get hurt. Let's not even talk about the targeting. Just Marvin Harrison stays in the game. Ohio State still kicks a field goal there, not a touchdown. Ohio State wins the game.
Yeah.
They win. They win the game. And I know that's me speculating, but you guys, you don't think Marvin Harrison's worth 10 more yards? Because that's really all we're talking about here.
Right.
He's worth 10 more yards.
It's a 40, it's a 35.
Georgia had no answer.
There's
no
answer.
And then last thing I'll say, and then it's probably a good transition into the other game because targeting is a conversation with both. Ohio State, and this is why people think our fans are insane. Ohio State has had the most blown opportunities in the last 2 decades to win national titles.
Yes.
The most blown opportunity. And I know we have 2. and so many schools would trade for that. But it's more based on the resources you have and the talent you have and the opportunities that they've had. Oh my goodness, they should have repeated in 15. They're way better than Jake Coker and that Alabama team. They should have at least made the national title in 19, and then maybe they lose that game to LSU. And this year, no offense to TCU, but it was right there.
Yes.
And this year, yes, I know it would have been your top 2 receivers are down, your top 2 running backs are down, your starting tight end is down. Forget about other injuries. Man,
Ohio State would have been a double-digit favorite against them too. Just like
and
Georgia.
that kills, man. That kills that Ohio State really. I mean, we're talking they should at least have 2 more in the last 2 decades. 06 and 07, at least in 06, that should have been a title. I mean, to not have 2 more to show for this talent in these teams hurts. It hurts a lot because for the players, it hurts for the players because it just feels like Ohio State can't seem to get over the hump, except for that Alabama game in 14 in the last 20 years. It's been incredibly frustrating to see them go so far, but just come up short. So that's been incredibly frustrating. Last point in the game is nobody knows what targeting is. Nobody.
What is it?
I appreciate all of you answering our poll question. 63% of you guys voted yes, it should have been called targeting. I believe if this is the NFL, it's absolutely at least called unnecessary roughness. I think the NFL, how they have it done, makes way more sense. They rarely eject any player. Oftentimes it is just the penalty, or even if it's not targeting, they deem it unnecessary roughness. My question with those of you who say it's not targeting, and maybe it's not targeting based on the NCAA's rules. Marvin Harrison didn't hit his head on the ground.
No. He
didn't have so how does he have a head concussion and symptoms if nobody touched him in the head? Clearly he's hit in the head, in my opinion, to where he's concussed. And whether it's by the rule, I believe it is forcible contact to the head or neck area. It does not need to be the crown of the helmet unless it's on a non-defenseless player. That's a load of jargon. I don't really know what to do with it. Targeting is incredibly frustrating. We need the call in the game. I understand why we have the penalty. Player safety is absolutely paramount, especially what we're talking about from yesterday. But this needs to be cleared up because nobody has a clue. I mean, I just watched the Cotton Bowl yesterday with Tulane and USC, and it looked clear as day. The wide receiver wasn't he wasn't like vulnerable in the way like he became a runner, but the USC player came in and speared him. And both players are laying on the ground for 5 minutes, and they pick up the flag and say it's not targeting. Now Tulane won the game anyway, so for that, cool. But
we tried. By the way, we tried to tell you about the angry little green wave. We tried to tell you. We've been telling you for weeks on this podcast. So, anyways,
but nobody knows what targeting
quick.
is. So you guys tell me what you think targeting is.
Targeting is, here's what targeting is, Johnny, and I'm so glad you asked. You have to stand. What I do is, and when I do targeting in my spare time, I take my helmet off of my head and I walk over to someone else's head and I just start beating them with it. And what that does is that's the only way targeting actually is ever called.
Actually, Josh, I think it would only be targeting if you hit him with the crown of the helmet.
That's right. I actually did I accidentally hit it with the side once, and then I said, "Hey, I did a targeting. I intend to do a targeting." And said, "No, you didn't."
No, you didn't.
That was just a clean play. And I went, "Oh, okay, thank you." Continued to beat him over the head.
I don't know if I have a solution for other than making a flagrant 1, flagrant 2. We've been saying, and not just we, lots of people have been asking for that specific change. Really, what the NFL has. That's really all we're asking. Here's the other thing I'm asking: pay your referees a full-time salary.
Oh yes.
And make that, in other words, make that their full-time job. There is so much money on the line now, more than ever, with the playoffs, with NIL, with an expanded playoffs coming just around the corner. There is so much money that there is no excuse. I don't know how that Michigan catch in the end zone was overturned. I never saw a camera view that was undisputable because they called it a touchdown and then they overturned it. Now, Michigan, I don't think I'm not saying Michigan should have won because of that. Don't do some stupid play on the 1 yard line. You're Michigan. You should be able to run up the middle or QB sneak from the 1. Okay, yes. Get over yourselves on that one. I understand maybe it wasn't a good call, and look, I get it. I'm probably going to be far more upset if that happens to my team. But the reality is just score from the 1. But all that being said,
special, it doesn't work anymore. It does not work.
Yeah, right. But all that being said, I don't know if that was a great call. I still think it might have been targeting at the end of the game, and I know you probably should call it. That's a weird way for a game to continue. Like, that would have been, if anything, even more controversial if that is called a targeting, if it gives Michigan a first down. Who knows where we'd be at if that happens. But bottom line, there's just too much at stake for you not to have a set of full employees employed probably by the NCAA or by somebody. It's mad, and we've said this before, so I don't need to get into it too much, but it's madness that that's not the case. It's just insane.
Aaron, to that point, and this was, I can't take credit for the idea because I listened to a bunch of different podcasts as well, and Joel Klatt was talking about why on earth do we have different officials conference?
Stupid.
Why do I think they're actually biased purposefully? No, I do not believe the refs are. But why would you even have the inclination that people could, well, what conference are they from? Why would you do that? And they're all trained separately. So different conferences look at replay differently. Replay's not made to re-officiate the play, like what you're saying on that Michigan touchdown. Listen, if you're re-officiating the play, maybe he's short. I don't know actually if he was short or in the end zone or not. I really don't know. But you called it a touchdown on the field. You're not supposed to re-officiate. Therefore, it should be a touchdown.
And so if it takes longer than 60 seconds to review it, it stays as is.
Right. So what for? Like you're telling me, so a Pac-12 official might call that not a touchdown, but a Big 12 conference official might call it a touchdown. We can't have that. We have to have as much consistency across the board as possible. That means training done at one hub. They're all nationalized referees, not conference to conference. Will one conference have mostly the same groups of officials? Sure, but they should all be under one umbrella. Like you said, Aaron, they should be full-time employees. There's plenty of money. There's no excuse. They should full-time with benefits work on expanding the pool of people for officials. And this really isn't a college thing specifically. We're really talking all major sports need to improve what they're doing for those.
Just wait till March Madness rolls around and you'll be reminded how bad the college refs are there.
Even the NFL doesn't do enough for their officials. Yeah. The NBA doesn't do enough for theirs. We complain about them because we care about the game. We want it to seem fair and equitable and equal across the board. But we're asking a lot of officials more than ever when it comes to making certain calls. That means you need to support and resource them properly. And that means standardization across the board and pay them. Give them people more incentive to want to be officials and referee these games so that you can get the best talent out there to be officials. So your point is well taken. We don't know what targeting is because it's so clunky. It's so clunky. I can't believe even on the targeting that they picked it up. Like that blew my mind that it was completely picked up and there was nothing.
Yeah.
Because
I'm with you. I didn't see an angle that didn't I didn't see an angle that would have proven targeting. I also didn't see an angle that proved it was not targeting.
And he was clearly defenseless.
Yeah.
Clearly defenseless. And even if Marvin gets taken out of the game and it's a 15-yard penalty, Ohio State probably scores a touchdown at the 2-yard line.
Yes.
A 1st and goal. And then that's probably ball game. That
Yeah.
might sound insane, but it's really not. That's probably ball game for what Georgia was dealing with in that uphill climb. Last little thing on that. I know we have so many things to talk about today. It was incredibly frustrating, but I absolutely have to commend Ohio State's training staff and coaching staff for keeping Marvin out of the game.
Yes. That was
Incredibly frustrating for him not to be able to go back in. For us watching, I can't imagine for him when he's begging to go back in the game, how hard that had to have been for the coaches and training staff to say, no, you have symptoms. We saw the hit. You're not going back in. And to protect him, I don't think they lost in a brilliant game, was that they made the right decision. And we've killed a lot of officials and coaches and stuff for not feeling like they're protecting their players. We're thinking Miami Dolphins with Tua. So I need to give props to the OSU staff for doing what we hope really all coaching staffs do when a player takes a hit like that and shows symptoms, to protect him and his well-being above the outcome of the game. So good on them. Really was good to see.
Yeah, we'll touch on the Georgia TCU championship game here in just a second. I think we all have pretty similar feelings. But speaking of that angry little green wave.
Yes.
That was an incredible game. Josh, if you would have been in Dallas, Johnny and I were literally ready to fly down and meet you because we found $2 tickets to this game, which is just insane. But the fact remains, it was an incredible game. What did you think about this insane?
Can I just first say,
Bowl?
I am so disappointed that I couldn't get down there. I was considering making my flight earlier, and then Southwest had a whole deal where they forgot how to fly for like a week and a half. So I'm actually I was going to be down in Dallas at this point, but I'm still up in with my parents, just to give Southwest a little bit of time to figure out what its deal is. But my goodness. I would have, what Tulane did?
Tell us.
Hey, Lincoln Riley, do you know? Hey, brisket guy, do you know what Tulane did to your team? They averaged 10.2 yards per play on USC. If you just want to count completions, about 30 yards per completion.
Of which they only had 8, by the way.
Of which they had very few.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, we could talk about how frustrating Jim Knowles is. I don't even know who the DC is for USC.
Alex Grinch.
Yes.
He ruined Ohio
Are you serious?
State's
Are you
defense
serious?
And ruined Oklahoma's defense, and now he's ruining USC's defense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I'm just so happy.
Yeah.
They are allergic to tackling.
Oh
the tackling in this game, again, we watched Ohio State in the Peach Bowl, and that was brutal. But Ohio State can at least tackle at times. I don't think the USC defenders have any clue what a tackle is. And they've just been fortunate to create chaos on turnovers all season. I don't think people have quite realized how bad this defense is, because they're almost top in the country in creating turnovers.
I believe they came into the game with the top turnover ratio in the country. Yes.
Yeah, and I think they only got 1 from Tulane in this game. And that one actually looked like it would end the game, because Tulane was inside the 20 and they were trading punches, and Tulane turns that over. Then you're like, oh, man, well, good run, Tulane. You had a shot. And gosh, Aaron, do you want to just talk through, though, like how that ending sequence, the last 4:30 of this game, like what happened when USC was up 45-30?
Yeah, well, for reference, there's a stat out there, and I apologize, I don't have the exact number, but basically teams were, in college football history, like 1 in 5,163 when trailing by 14 or more under 5 minutes to play. Well, now teams are 2 and 5,163 because Tulane pulled off this incredible comeback. So they score a touchdown, and then they kick the ball off to USC, as you do after you score. And the USC returner fumbles the ball out of bounds at the 2-yard line. He called a fair catch, but by rule, he didn't catch it. The ball went out of bounds. The ball is placed where it went out of bounds, at the 2. Tulane gets a safety. That means that, in addition to the 2 points that they receive, USC must now kick the ball off to Tulane because that's what you do after a safety. Tulane marches right down the field. They pick up a couple 3rd and 4th down conversions. Just they were flying around everywhere the whole game. Got to give some shout outs to Tyjae Spears. He declared for the NFL draft today. 17 carries, 205 yards. Also had a catch for 14 yards. Jaquan Jackson, rough day for the wide receivers, guys. Jaquan Jackson, 1 catch. Oh, tough. 87 yards and a touchdown. Deuce Watts, two catches. Pretty tough day from one of their best wide receivers, right? 2 catches. 83 yards with a long of 59. That kind of gives you the sense. Guys, Tulane had the ball for 20 minutes for a third of this game. USC never punted. Caleb Williams went 37 for 52, 462 yards, 5 touchdowns. He did have the 1 interception. Caleb Williams is awesome in this game. We talked about Jim Knowles ruining an opportunity for Ohio State. USC is in danger of ruining an opportunity they already have the Heisman quarterback in Caleb Williams. He's coming back. They're going to be loaded offensively again. They'll find weapons, whether through recruiting, through who they have on the roster still, through the transfer portal, because they hit mostly home runs in the transfer portal. But this USC defense is just atrocious.
Awful.
I think it's interesting because it's easy to overreact, well, maybe appropriately react to what we saw. Because in reality, if you told us that USC was going 10-4 and a New Year's 6 game before the season started, I would have said, yeah, that sounds about right, and that's significant improvement from what they've seen from Steve Sarkisian, from Clay Helton for the most part. I know they each had their own years, but just what you've seen from some of these USC coaches, it's been abysmal there. So as a collective, a 10-win New Year's 6 Pac-12 championship appearance season, it's like, all right, great. Lincoln Riley's got this program headed in the right direction. The problem is this was a carbon copy of some of the failures that he's had at Oklahoma. No coach has blown more 14-point leads since 2017 than has Lincoln Riley. So I'm going to give him some time. On one hand, yes, I think I need to probably be a little bit more patient with him, see what he can do in year 2, see what he can do in year 3, 4, because, who knows what he's able to recruit in LA as opposed to Norman. But the glaring weaknesses are still there. Lincoln Riley's got this incredible offensive system. He will churn out Heisman Trophy winners like he did at Oklahoma. And in the end, when it matters most, in the Pac-12 championship game, in the Cotton Bowl, or in the playoffs past, his defense gets run off the field and doesn't give his offense a chance. The 2018 Rose Bowl might still be the greatest semifinal, but his defense gave up 52 points and lost.
Yeah. They had that game. That was the ultimate choke job, really, in the semifinal. Aaron, I'm actually not going to give them a pass.
Okay.
This still will be probably their worst USC defense, but Trojan fans, this might not get a lot better because this man keeps employing Alex Grinch.
Yes.
He brought him with him from Oklahoma. And if you've watched Oklahoma, we just talked about that Rose Bowl game where they choked it away against Georgia. And I know Georgia had a great team that year with 2 stud running backs. But all you had to do was run out the clock, basically, in that game. And I know that's partially on Lincoln and the offense, too. But this is just a trend at this point. Alex Grinch is not a good defensive coordinator. I don't know why he keeps getting all the credit. I know this feels like a personal attack, but he was really, really solid at Washington State with Mike Leach because of the style there. And you could argue the Pac-12 was at an all-time low in competition at the time. He goes to Ohio State, terrible, awful as defensive coordinator there. Then he goes to Oklahoma, and we see all of that madness. Not good. Lincoln Riley takes it with him. Listen, guys, I know they're not the players aren't the best in the world, but tackling is fundamental. That's coaching. That's them being not in their assignments, them not being able to use proper technique is not a talent deficiency. That's a coaching malpractice. So guys, I don't think it'll get better because next year the Pac-12 is awesome and loaded with other great teams and great quarterbacks. This USC team with Caleb Williams has all the potential in the world, but I don't buy them making it through that tough, now Pac-12 real gauntlet next year.
Yeah, do you want to hear their schedule next year?
They don't get to play those Northwest teams, do they?
They've got a couple, but here's their schedule. And keep in mind that I think the Pac-12, from a quarterback perspective, is the most difficult conference in terms of the depth of quarterbacks, which again, we're talking about USC's defense. But here's their schedule. I don't know exact dates yet, but they are at Notre Dame, who, by the way, is getting an excellent quarterback. At Oregon, home to UCLA, home to Utah, home to Washington. So they've got some home games, but yeah, that's a challenging schedule. And by the way, they're coming to the Big Ten, where it is kind of required that you play some semblance of defense. A little bit. I mean, Purdue got just annihilated, but we saw that one coming. They don't count.
They didn't care.
Also, I say that, and the Big Ten gave up a combined 92 points in the college football semifinals. So I probably shouldn't run my mouth too much about the Big Ten. But
Iowa would
being,
give USC a run for their money just because USC would never get the ball.
Yep.
So, I mean, they struggle with Utah.
Yes.
You know what a lesser version of Utah is called? Iowa.
Well, think about the team that had the best secondary probably in the Pac-12 was Utah, the team that beat USC twice. Tulane's defense, now they were far from great, but they were one of the best in the American. And I'm not even going to say the defense stopped them because the defense didn't even force a punt. So I don't know where I'm going with that point. But overall, the team that USC struggled with the most was the team that played arguably the best defense all season with NFL first round caliber corners, or at least one. So anyways.
But Green Wave, we're proud of you. Wonderful job.
Proud.
We were all cheering for you. Feels great. You now have the record for biggest turnaround between two seasons, from 2-10 to 12-2. Incredible job by Fritz and that coaching staff. Tulane not going anywhere. They're losing some of those skill positions, but quarterback's coming back. Coach isn't going anywhere. And with the departures from the American, they should be the favorite again next season. So go little angry Green Wave. We were all cheering for you. Yes.
Yeah. Josh, was there any other New Year's Six game? I know they were mostly all blowouts, but was there any other game that caught your attention? Like even just you were impressed by the win, or you're looking ahead to next year and thinking, wow, this team might be a team to look for. And I know you've got something you're saving for what we're following, so no spoilers, but
yes, no spoilers for that. So I won't do your six. I just want to say how hilarious it is that Iowa shut out Kentucky. It's just really, there's nothing crazy about it. It's just really funny to me that the defense again scored more points than the offense. They had a total of, what is this? 206 total yards of offense. And it's just really, I don't have any real deep analysis. Please fire everybody on the offensive side.
Game.
Nepotism is bad.
You sicko, you.
I started on that game, not the Sugar Bowl between Kansas State and Alabama.
To be fair, you watched a better
Deuce Vaughn touchdown. Yeah, I missed that Deuce Vaughn touchdown because at first I was like, heck, I'm watching Kentucky, Iowa. I'm waiting for the safeties. I was slightly disappointed, but I love that there were 2 defensive touchdowns and it still hit the under by 10 plus points.
A historic low over under, by the way. Historically low.
Yes.
It still hit the under with 2 defensive touchdowns. That was the best. I love that. That was the best blowout of any of the bowl games.
Clearly.
It might as well have been 50-0.
It was
for most teams, that was the
why haven't they just taught a safety how to throw the football at this point?
They put their tight end at quarterback. They went wildcat with their tight end in the game. It was awesome.
That's, you know what? Why don't you have some fun? It's not going to do. I was always not going to do anything against Iowa. Give it a shot. Have some fun.
Yeah, your best play is putting your defense on the field anyway, so you might as well just do whatever the heck you want on offense. Go wild, go crazy.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Aaron, one very, very quick point.
Yeah.
Penn State beating Utah in the Rose Bowl. Feel really bad for Cam Rising getting hurt again. That was a really fun match until he got knocked out. Penn State, be careful, everybody.
Oh, my.
That is the dark horse, not only in the Big Ten, but probably for the playoff next
Yes.
year. And you're like, what? You're like, well, did you see TCU coming? So Penn State, that duo of great young running backs, that defense is almost all coming back. Specifically, the defense that you just saw in the Rose Bowl with that strong defensive line, that improved secondary, even without Joey Porter. I think with Manny Diaz, that defense is nasty next year. And if Drew Aller can come in and be as promising as people think at quarterback, be careful. Be careful. That those Nittany Lions, they might sneak up on you. So I really was impressed with them in the Rose Bowl, specifically that defense, and they are my dark horse team as of right now. We'll see what the transfer portal does, but yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll see. I'm overreacting big time because I just watched Ohio State and Michigan again give up a combined 91 points in the semifinal, and then a couple days later, I watched Penn State handle a pretty good Utah team. I was like, does Penn State win the Big Ten next year? So maybe in the course of the 8 months that we now have to pump the brakes on or accelerate any of the hot takes that we have, because clearly our normal quote unquote takes for the playoff are also just as horrendous. So I might as well just hot take some stuff and see what sticks. But I had same thoughts, and they are bringing a decent bit back as well. Yeah, it could be quarterback improvement. Although I will say, Sean Clifford, that might have been the best game of his career, and what a time to have it.
It was.
So good for him. He was emotional at the end of a long, long career, is first in just about every single statistic in the Penn State record book. So good for him. All right. I said we were going to preview Georgia TCU. We still can. I think we all think Georgia's going to win still. I know our pick was all Georgia over Michigan,
Frogs.
But yes, go Frogs. Just generally speaking, has nothing to do
Max
with
Duggan should have won the Heisman.
Yes. Yes, he should have.
This person, I will say, nobody thought TCU was big enough or fast enough to beat Michigan. They absolutely were, and they absolutely are to beat Georgia. I'm not going to predict it because I thought Georgia also did not play their best against Ohio State. No. That's taking nothing away from Ohio State, obviously. But Kirby Smart himself even said Ohio State should have won that game. I think it would be hard to find an honest Georgia fan that wouldn't agree with that statement. So I think Georgia's probably going to play much, much better. I think it'll be a fun game. America will be cheering for TCU. TCU has the fight in them to do this. But you're going to have a massive game from Johnston on the outside, much like Marvin Harrison, for them to have a chance to beat Georgia in this one. So let's see if they are able to protect Max Duggan. That's going to really be the key to the game.
Yeah, we'll see. Georgia has allowed like 850 yards passing in their last two games. If you look at that Ohio State game, if you go back to the SEC championship where LSU got beat by like 20, but still threw for a bazillion yards against them. So the secondary is not great. That's probably maybe the main weakness of that team. They've been able to overcome it so far. I think they'll be able to do it again. Guys, here's the other thing. And again, I think we're about, not to spoil what Josh is going to have for what we're following, but another reason why I am not a proponent whatsoever of the 12-team playoff. Think about what you have left. If Ohio State would have made it to the championship, Johnny, I think you or one of you guys mentioned it, down probably your top two wide receivers, down your top two running backs, down your tight end if you're Ohio State. And again, not to make an excuse, that's not the reason, well, maybe partially, but doesn't matter. That I'm not using that as an excuse for why you lost to Georgia. Because you've been down a lot of those players for most of the season anyways. TCU loses their running back. It sounds like he's going to be able to play. He's a key piece to that team. He has like 1,400 rushing yards. That's critical. Georgia loses one of their tight ends in Washington. Brock Bowers is the tight end 1, but tight end 1B is Washington. That's a major loss, and I haven't seen that injury specifically, but I'm assuming that he's also out for the championship. Imagine adding 2 more games to the schedule. What are you going to be left with? You're going to be left with, all right, Alabama, are your walk-ons better than Ohio State's walk-ons? Can't wait to watch this. Now, I know Ohio State won a championship with their third-string quarterback. I know there's been stories where teams overcome depth issues and win a title. But the reality is that's such
I
a
mean, we share that too,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's just I don't know.
That can't be the standard.
No.
That has to
no,
be the
absolutely
exception.
not.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. Thank you.
I get that.
Yeah.
I think there are solutions. We won't get into it. I think there's solutions to that and decreasing other areas to alleviate the schedule. The
Oh, I
schedule
agree,
is
but I don't think that's
absolutely
happening.
absurd with what we're doing right now. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
another time in the off season, though,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
that's a whole
Yeah.
can of worms.
That is a can of worms. Also, a can of worms. Here's my attempt at a segue. The NFL playoffs are right around the corner. We are heading into week 18, and there's some scenarios. So I'll just rapid fire these. And guys, who would have thought heading into week 18
Who
that
would have thought?
Johnny, we kind of knew your team was good. But Josh, I'll just speak to you, man to man, heart to heart. Who would have
Speak to
thought
me.
in week 18 we would be
Who-
going into the week thinking, well, golly gee, if the right things happen, our teams are going to be in the playoffs. How about that?
What a yeah. I mean, yeah. Ask us week 2. Ask us week 3.
Yeah.
Hey, how do you feel? Ask us week 8. And
Yep.
yeah, I've just been very happy with Pickett's growth. Again, screw Mitch. I don't hate him, but please leave. Everyone wants Kenny. I will say, as far as like I watched Lions Bears this past Sunday. I am so impressed with what that team has been able to, Lions specifically. Justin Fields, I'm so sorry for you. If you want to come over to the Steelers, you're not our play style, but you know, I'll give you a shot. We have an O-line. We at least have an O-line, more of an O-line. We'll give you more than 2.5 seconds to decide to just run it. Goodness, the Lions look like playoff contenders. My goodness. And you would know that the night, but I'm just so impressed with how the Lions have been able to turn around. And
Yeah.
yay, Steelers, if everything goes right. But I knew going into this season, I'm like, I'm just going to call this one a wash. Mike Tomlin can break his record of over 500, seasons once. It's fine.
Well, and he may not. There's a very real scenario
not.
where he wins, the Steelers go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. Because here's what happens. Here's what needs to happen for the Steelers. It's very complicated because the Patriots, Dolphins, Steelers, and Jaguars are all, and I believe the Titans as well, are all in play for the wild card. Now, in the AFC South, we have a winner-take-all between the Jaguars and Titans. Winner of that game wins the division and miraculously hosts a playoff game, much like Tampa Bay, who recently clinched the NFC South. Apparently, the South Division's just...
Darn it.
Okay, anyways. So I believe the Steelers need to win.
Anyone beat Tom, please.
The Dolphins need to lose to the already eliminated New York Jets. That might be complicated because, as mentioned, the Dolphins are also in play for the wild card and will not want to lose that game. Not that any team does, but the Patriots also need to lose to Buffalo. And that's a whole scenario, as we talked about. Also, the Patriots need to win that game. So Steelers need a lot of help. The Lions also need some help. So we transition to the NFC. I'll also mention the Chiefs. We don't know what's happening with the result of that Bengals-Bills game. Again, not the most important thing, but since we're talking about playoff scenarios, it's likely the Chiefs are going to win it anyways and may have won it easily anyways, even with a normal result from that Monday night game. So we'll just leave that there. Top seed in the NFC, moving there. The Eagles can clinch the top seed with a win or a tie or a loss or tie by either the Cowboys or 49ers. So that seems pretty likely. Yes, there's a scenario where the Eagles are not the top seed. Jalen Hurts' health has kind of been a question the last couple weeks. It seems clear that he's really a key piece to that team. Not that we doubted that, but the question was really, could you plug in any quarterback and have success? And so far, the answer to that question has been no. The wild card for the NFC, it's a little less obscure. So here's the deal. The Green Bay Packers, love them, hate them, probably mostly hate them, can clinch a playoff spot by just simply beating the Detroit Lions, which, as a Lions fan, that seems very likely considering that's what the Packers consistently do to the Lions, although the Lions did knock off the Packers in Detroit. But look, Detroit has to go to Green Bay for their playoff hopes to stay alive, beat Green Bay in Lambeau in January at night. All of that seems unlikely, but they also need the Seahawks to lose to the Los Angeles Rams. So, gentlemen, let me introduce you to the irony of being a Detroit Lions fan this year. We have just come off a Super Bowl where we're like, yes, Matt Stafford. We love to see it. Super Bowl winner. Now we ask the Rams to lose every possible game because the Lions had the Rams draft pick. And we've just been, yeah, the Rams suck this year. That's awesome. Our draft pick's looking great. And now we got to week 18 and we're sitting here. Sorry, Rams, for being so unkind to you. Would you please kindly beat the Seattle Seahawks? Thank you. With Baker Mayfield at quarterback, most likely. So somehow, in a weird twist of fate, my team's playoff hopes rest somewhat on the shoulders of Baker Mayfield. So that's a thing. The Seahawks are, of course, the other team in this wild card situation for the NFC. So the Seahawks can clinch by beating the Rams, and the Seahawks actually need Detroit to beat the Packers. Because again, the Packers, by just demolishing the Vikings last week, have paved their way. They are in control of their own destiny. So I think at the end of the day, the Packers are going to beat the Lions, and it'll be done. It'll be easy. Still monumental success from the Lions this season. I'm with you, Josh. It's been awesome to see this team. That defense is still very bad. If you don't lose to Carolina on Christmas Eve, that game just stunk. You allowed a franchise record in both rushing yards and total yards to the Panthers. If you don't do that, then we're probably not even having this conversation. I believe the Lions would control their own destiny at that point. But anyways, so there's your NFC and AFC playoff scenarios. I know there's more games there that will have some impact on seeding and so forth, but we'll kind of just address that after this week. We'll kind of get a clean start. We can come back next week. We can talk about the college football championship. We can talk about the playoff seeds. The games will be in wild card weekend, the weekend after next. So we'll address all that there, but there was your quick rundown of the NFL playoffs situation. All right, we introduced this segment a couple weeks ago. It's one of our favorites, Straight to Jail. All right, guys, I'll kick us off. There's a couple things. We had Christmas, we had the holidays, we had some great time with family. We also had time to scroll through Twitter with some extra free time off work and just find things that just completely irked us and made us want to send people to jail. So that's what we're here to do. Guys, have you heard this Old Navy commercial that keeps playing? Now, I think they've kind of phased it out because it was a Christmas-related commercial. Do you guys know the one I'm talking about with the piano?
Yes. It's awful.
I don't know if I do,
the bane
actually.
of my existence.
Oh. Josh,
It is awful.
Josh, I envy you that you live in a world where you have not heard this commercial. I would love to be there. That commercial is... do I dare play that on the podcast?
No.
Will we chase away every
Probably
listener we
copywritten.
have?
It's too terrible.
I feel like, Josh is looking it up right now.
Yeah, don't worry. And I'll just listen to it myself and cry real quick.
Oh, do you have a way to put it through your microphone so future
Just
editing Aaron
no.
doesn't have? If not, it's fine.
It's a great question.
Probably
Oh
not.
gosh,
Don't worry about
I
it
think
too
I
much.
can see. Yes.
Why is she feeding the reindeer asparagus?
It's all horrible.
Why?
What?
From start to finish, it's only 15 seconds, but from start to finish, it is the worst commercial, I believe.
Is it like the Old Navy
ever
gifting
engineered.
thing? Is it the white
Yes.
piano?
Yes, it is the worst.
Yeah. It's the worst. I don't get it.
For the
I don't
YouTube
get
audience,
it
we get
either.
to watch Josh's reaction to this commercial live, and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. Also, just
it
don't
just a-
get it. Am I supposed to get something, Aaron?
No, I don't.
Like,
it doesn't
is
make
going
any
over
sense.
my head?
It's super obnoxious. I don't
Yeah,
understand
her
how
voice is
it was
just obnoxious
I don't
too.
understand
I'm
how the
sorry.
idea was
It's really obnoxious.
created. I don't know how many people approved it. None of it makes sense. It's beyond annoying. Whoever made it,
I hate
and
when
every
people
single
say
person.
the word hashtag. I hate that.
What?
Yeah.
What is
I hate
what
that
is
so
this?
much.
Aaron, what is this? It's
Yep. This is my
is
my
this that
waking
thing
nightmare,
where they
Josh.
make it
That's what it is.
so dumb. Is it this thing where they make it so dumb that it's just like it has to be stuck in your? It feels like 7 different commercial ideas. Like they
Now-
were out of time and they had to like put a 15-second ad out, and it's like
Right.
3 different ideas.
No, they did this purposeful. This is deliberate.
This
is
hashtag
this is
ad
assault
was hashtag
on-
inspired by the
on-
hashtag internet.
I
Is
hate
this a
I hate
bunch
that
of
so much.
boomers in like some conference room in LA or New York going, what are the kids like? They
feel
like
like
hashtags, right?
The woman on there was the age of a boomer, so maybe.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
What is this? I'm so glad I've never
look,
seen this. This is dumb.
sorry to ruin your perfect world, Josh. Look, I understand we're talking about Old Navy,
now
so in a
sad.
way, I feel like we've kind of failed because we're bringing attention to them. But I just think generally, and by the way, the comments on the YouTube video itself are hilarious, and that is giving me life today. So they're great. They get a get out of jail free card, but every single person involved in the production of this commercial, straight to jail. Straight to jail. One other group of people that I would like to send straight to jail. Apparently, there's this thing called, and this is just the worst, the NCAA Transformation Committee. And apparently, no, look, I think probably the overall purpose of this committee is fine. They're just looking to make sports better. But their idea of making sports better is to expand basically every competition to allow 20 to 25% of schools within a particular division to compete in the postseason tournament. Now, if that didn't make any sense, that's okay, because here's a really good example, and by good, I mean horrible. That means that the NCAA Transformation Committee is recommending March Madness grow from a field of 68 to a field of 90. And that is the worst. Straight to jail. No one wants that. In some way, it's kind of like I'm evil. I have a little bit of like an evil laugh in the back of my mind. I'm like, haha, all these people that hate this. Now you know what I feel when the college football playoff expands, but other than that, I'll get my selfishness out of the way there. That's the worst. Straight to jail.
How many would that mean in college football? Like 32?
Yeah. Which is just the worst. It's all the worst.
Oh,
Why
I'm
does
sorry,
anything
Josh. Go
exist?
ahead.
No,
Go
why
ahead.
does anything exist? I don't want to stay on the commercial thing. I will just say, and it's just because, and it's probably because it finally happened to us. Like in a way that really, I don't watch a lot of live TV. I steal like everyone's streaming accounts until next year when everyone finally cracks down on it. But for this year, I've just enjoyed living my life. So I don't watch a ton of commercials. But there has been one that shows up on YouTube every now and then and has really shown up during the playoffs and bowl season. And it's the launch. I guess it feels like a rebrand of Burger King.
Oh no. I know.
And it's the BK Have It Your Way ad. And I will say the only reason why I think it might be worse is because I think they're just longer. Maybe they just feel longer. And it's this I could probably on this little mic right now sing a better tune than
Josh, I think you should just sing the commercial. I think you should just sing it.
I mean, it's like, you go, oh, well, that may have been a targeting call. Well, Harrison's off for now. We'll let you back when we're done. BK, have it your way. And I want to throw up. So,
Josh, you don't want to rule? You don't want to...
If they ever gave me the scepter and the crown at the Burger King, my first job would be to send everybody in the ad department straight to jail. It's the last thing standing, and it's just such a jarring. I feel like and maybe just because there's been more injuries or like more like tragic plays that we've seen, and the tone of that ad is just so jarring. But also, and I'm a fan of as someone who does music stuff, I'm also a fan of keeping, vocals and production as raw and lifelike as possible. Throw some auto-tune on that guy, please. Just a little bit. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's not going to hurt anyone. Straight to jail, everybody.
Oh man.
It's the worst.
Okay.
I will usurp the king and send him to jail too.
Mine is more serious, but mine is real life. And I feel like most people have felt this at one time in their life, at least one. So just started a new job today. So naturally, you get the whole HR spiel and you find out everything that's going on and they tell you about your healthcare plans. And then after that, they talk to you about dental plans and eye care plans. Well, hold on a second. Who decided that these are separate things? Are my eyes and my teeth not part of my overall health? Are they not part of my body?
Tell them.
Whoever decided, not to mention it costs us all more money. So yeah, this is a very adult straight to jail, but whoever was the original person who decided that to just charge everybody extra money to cover their teeth and their eyes, why those specifically, straight to jail.
Yep.
I mean,
Right away.
immediate to jail. Yes, maximum security jail.
Why?
You will never see the light of day again, sir. Jail.
Why are teeth luxury bones that I must pay extra
So
to
true,
keep them
Josh.
cool?
That's a very excellent way of phrasing it, Josh. Didn't you know your eyes are also additional? They are
They're just
extra.
really. They're just only
we
rich
are-
people can see.
Yes.
Oh,
You know
no.
how fortunate we are to see.
Yes, truly.
Oh,
And how fortunate I am wearing glasses to be rich, apparently.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you must be
Wow.
wildly
this.
rich, Josh, and
Royalty.
successful. Yes.
On my way to usurp the Burger King.
The way you just said the Burger King, just I can't. Oh. Man, can you tell we missed each other? We skipped a week, so now we just have a lot of dumb
skipped a
things
week.
to say to one another.
Yeah, enjoy
So-
the next 45 minutes of this podcast of us just being
Yeah,
dumb.
seriously. All right. Well, I'll try to rein it in, guys. Thanks for your straight to jail. And if again, I got to remind you guys, you the listener, of course, if you have something you want to straight to jail, let us know. We'll give you a shout out. We're all for putting people, places, and things in jail that belong there straight away.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a person.
No. No. All right, guys, it's time for our picks of the week. Not a lot of movement on our scoreboard. We all picked the same thing, essentially Georgia over Michigan. Of course, Georgia did beat Ohio State, but TCU, of course, came out victorious. So it means that we each got a point for now. So the scoreboard reads myself with 53, and Josh and Johnny, you guys are both at 48. So because we've essentially already picked the college football championship in the FBS, we are turning to the FCS, which is happening on Saturday from Frisco, Texas. And it's a really intriguing matchup. We actually have a bit of a rivalry game in the FCS championship between the North Dakota State Bisons or Bison. I can't remember. They're really particular about which one it is, and I can't remember.
Just Bison.
Thank you. And then the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, both excellent nicknames. Yeah, awesome. Just real quick, again, any applicable moment I can jump in and say, here's why a 12-team playoff is dumb. Everyone's like, 12-team playoff, more champions. Well, how about an expanded playoff in the FCS? You guys want to know the winners. 2011 through 2015, North Dakota State won every single year. 2016, James Madison. So there's some diversity. Oh, but then 2017 to 2019, North Dakota State all over again. Sam Houston did get through in 2020. But again, in 2021, it was North Dakota State. And I'm just going to go out and say, not because I think this team necessarily will win, although they certainly could, I'm going to say North Dakota State because this is one of my greatest proving grounds of why an expanded playoff may not give you the results you want. So I'm going to be a stick in the mud like I always am, and I'm going North Dakota State.
Jackrabbits are just a cool animal. Like, it's just a cool mascot to pick. And yeah, I'm going to pick, they've been, these poor guys, they've been in the playoffs 2012 through 20. Oh, yeah. They took a gap in 2011 and they've been in the playoffs since every year.
They got it this time, Josh.
This
is the breakthrough moment.
This is it. This is finally it. I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm
excited too. Dakota marker rivalry. I hope they just bring it down to Frisco. They probably don't for a playoff game, but they should. I think the Jackrabbits beat the Bison. They've been the more impressive team really throughout the year. North Dakota State really looked like they were in trouble against Incarnate Word. Yes, I watched all that game. You guys should watch FCS playoffs. They are really wonderful and wild games. They're awesome, and you've never heard of any of these names, but you might see them on Sundays. So I do recommend watching this game. There will be NFL talent on the field. I think the Jackrabbits finally break through and get it done. Plus, I need to catch up a point on Aaron. This seems like a reasonable time to do so.
Sounds good. And our bowl game challenge is also wrapping up. There is, of course, the championship still left, but I'm currently tied for first. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So we'll obviously get the results out at the end of the championship game and get prizes to second and third as well, because I'm obviously going to take first. I'm just kidding. We'll see. There's tiebreakers and stuff too for a bunch of people that are tied for second and third. So, but if you joined that, thanks for joining. I really enjoyed having a bunch of people in the bowl game challenge, and it was a wild ride. And at the end of it. Man, yeah, it's hard to believe college football season is kind of already wrapping up. We are less than a week away from the final game of the season. All right, I know this episode's going long, but what'd you expect? We were off for like 2.5 weeks. So it's time for what we're following. I can start. I've got a baseball related item. So the turn of the calendar means that we're just a couple months away from spring training, which I just love that time of the year leading into the season. So, and as kind of the resident baseballer on the podcast, so to speak, I've got an interesting piece of news that maybe you weren't following this particular news story in the midst of all the bowl games and the NFL and basketball and Donovan Mitchell scoring 71. Within all of that, Carlos Correa, if you're not familiar, he's one of the better shortstop just quite frankly, one of the better shortstops in the game, but he was one of the most notable free agents. So it sounded like originally, and this happened almost 2 weeks ago, that the San Francisco Giants were going to offer Correa a 13-year, $350 million contract. Now, the Giants, it sounded good, but one of the things you have to do before that contract is signed is undergo a physical with the team. Basically, they're just, making sure there's no hidden injuries or just, making sure that you're physically fit, ready to sign a contract like that you'll be able to perform for your team. Well, after Correa underwent his physical with the Giants, there was a lot of concern on the Giants' part. I can't remember exactly what his injury is, but he has a lingering injury that apparently flared up, and eventually it got to the point where the Giants and Correa just didn't agree. Partially that, partially the Mets, who are just spending insane amounts of money. We've never really seen a baseball team spend as much money as the New York Mets are currently spending. The Mets swept in and said, we'll give it a try. So I believe their contract was 12 years, $315 million guaranteed. So very interesting. Giants are like, injury concerns, whatever. The Mets are like, we don't care. Let's do it. And then the Mets had the physical with Carlos Correa, and it sounds like they've kind of uncovered similar issues. So currently, one of the biggest free agents on the market is just kind of floating out there. We're not really sure what his injury status is, if he's healthy, what kind of contract it will be. So he's kind of in limbo. The Mets are trying to work a deal, but that was kind of a crazy thing because it sounded like the Giants were like, oh, wow, maybe the Giants are really trying to compete. I know they had a good year in 2020, but was not quite the same in 2021 or 22. But the odd thing is, too, with the Giants, they also signed a free agent for 2 years, $36 million, and Michael Conforto, who has a well-documented shoulder that doesn't throw the ball very far. Like, it's an injury that he just doesn't have a great arm anymore, and he plays outfield. So it was a little odd that the Giants would do such a hard pivot from Correa and also pick up a player like Michael Conforto, who hasn't played in over a year, I believe, with a lot of injury concerns. It was just kind of odd, but we'll see. We really don't know all of everything that's going into this Correa situation, but a little odd, and we'll keep following it. But there's your quick baseball update of the day. And Aaron Judge got paid, so that happened a while ago, but you probably knew that.
So that was wild though, Aaron.
Insane.
Still, we don't even know really what the injury is. It's just speculation at this point, but insane. What I'm following is something that probably a lot of you guys have seen. If you're on Twitter, maybe it made its way to Instagram and like TikTok as well. Waffle House employees are wild. Gosh. We got our straight to jail segment. You know who I would entrust as guards in that jail? Waffle House employees. I would trust them with my life. So you guys have seen that video probably of that woman or man, I can't remember who, throwing that chair across the counter at one of the Waffle House employees. And I swear she stops its motion and gravity of the chair. And then discards it. I've never seen something so cool at a regular place. First off, don't throw chairs at Waffle House employees.
Don't throw things at employees.
I feel like that doesn't need to be said, but clearly it does. So please stop throwing chairs at Waffle House employees. But man, she discarded that like it was nothing and was not thrown off whatsoever and was ready to just go to war. I mean, God bless Waffle House employees. And
Barely
then
looks
that
phased.
spiraled into who would win in a fight, McDonald's employees or Waffle House employees. And my favorite comment was a fully healthy Waffle House staff is going toe to toe with the Avengers. And I do not disagree, except for the fact that Waffle House staff is never fully staffed. So they'd be horribly outnumbered, but they got a shot. And then my other
Waffle houses, are not allowed to be staffed fully by the Geneva Convention just because of the dangers.
the dangers to the public.
Yes.
And then lastly, there was this story about this woman's telling about her boyfriend who keeps getting into a fight with the Waffle House cook because the cook keeps making his eggs wrong in a different way. So this man will go in, went in the first time and ordered eggs. And how did he order them? Let me see. He orders runny eggs. And so he cooks them, and I think he scrambles them the first time. And he gets angry because he's like, this isn't how I ordered them. And the cook basically shrugs his shoulder and says, tough. And he asked him to make them again, and he made them over easy. So this man, I love Waffle House employees. They just don't care, man. It's also Waffle House. What are you expecting? You got eggs. Be happy. No matter how they you thought you ordered them. So this man keeps going back on principle and ordering eggs and still gets furious every time. And they get into fist fights now every time. It's a tradition at this point. So I'm telling you, Waffle House employees, God bless you. You are the support beams of America.
Truly.
I don't know what we would do without you. Thank you, Waffle House. We love you.
Amazing.
Man. You know what? I might just wake up at 3 a.m. today and just go to a Waffle House for old time's sake. Catch a fight. Who knows?
Yeah, Josh.
Order the eggs, Josh.
Yeah, why spend $100 on a pay-per-view when you can just walk into Waffle House?
Listen, and don't go when it's daylight out. Don't you dare go when it's day outside. You go when it's the dead of night. Don't even suggest going at a normal restaurant. Oh, goodness. We've been hinting at this the entire show, that we don't like a 12-team playoff. And I've always been kind of on the fence, but I will tell you, I reread the format for how the 12-team playoff's going to go, and then I reorganized this past week's games into the new 12-team format, and I want you to tell me whether or not these are better games. So for those of you unfamiliar, conference champs from the top 4 conferences, Power 5 conferences, will get automatic buys. Everybody else will get structured into 5 through 12. 12 plays 5. So 11 plays 6. You know the deal. The higher seed gets the home court advantage or home field advantage. Pretty standard stuff. However, with that slight hiccup of the Power 5 teams, the top 4 Power 5 teams getting automatic buys, here's what your 1 through 12 looks like, and the games that will then be played. 1, Georgia. 2, Michigan, standard. 3, Kansas State, Big 12 champ, gets a bye technically. 4, and you can switch these around, but I think given the nature of the games, you can switch 3 or 4. This is all tentative and obviously fake.
Yeah, and I think this is based on the college football playoff, the final rankings. So maybe they would organize them different if it's 12-team playoff. You would like to think not, but you're right, though, Josh. Kansas State, who just lost by 25 in the Sugar Bowl.
Just by 25 in the Sugar Bowl. Then you have Utah, Pac-12 champ. Those 4 teams get buys. Fun. Then you have 5 through 12. Most likely TCU, then OSU, Alabama, then Tennessee, USC, Clemson, Penn State, and Tulane. And you can flip a few of those around, but that's pretty much what could have happened. And so you have Tulane playing at TCU, Penn State playing at Ohio State, Clemson playing at Alabama, USC playing at Tennessee, and then the winners of those go and play top 4 seeds on the New Year's 6 bowls, and then it just goes from normal there. I don't given the bowl games that we just witnessed, especially with those 1, 4, and 2, 3, given that we would have missed that, given that TCU would have had to earn their slot against what would have been, I mean, Georgia would have probably crushed Utah. Michigan walked over K-State for the most part. If we just had a normal top 4 teams. However, I don't see, unless you guys can tell me, and you have the visual too, are any of these other potential games you would have wanted to see this year over what ended up happening, ranking wise? There's a few, like, Penn State at Ohio State, maybe Clemson at Alabama. I can't imagine that going any differently. USC at Tennessee could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, any of those teams playing, like, let's see here.
Tulane wouldn't have stood a chance against TCU.
No, that's the thing, is like we wouldn't have seen that, and that's the thing. And I feel like I did this. I feel like I did this a few months ago, where I pulled up the top 12 for the past, since the college playoffs have started. I ended up with that final AP top 12. We just kind of ran through realistically is 12 doing anything, and you might end up getting the perfect matchup every now and then. I don't think, frankly, any of us expected Tulane USC to do what they ended up doing. But, like, I don't see anything here that makes me excited for a 12-team playoff. Well, it looks like just an extra game. And we talked to Joshua Perry, quite a while ago at this point. It's like episode 30 odd. Like, he's like, that puts so much extra stress on these players that we don't realize, because they're also dealing with things like finals week. Imagine if you had finals week and the most important game of your life. Yeah. And it just, for me, it makes me, I love the bowls. I love the ridiculousness of the bowls. I love how you can get some of these weirder matchups that wouldn't normally work. And just playing to play a game, like, Tulane, good job. And I'm hoping that you enjoy these times, because, yeah, when's the next time a 12 team is going to make a cool run like that if we rank them like this?
I think the problem in the system already, and I think, as opposed to you guys, I think I'm long past reaching the acceptance point. So I'm more really thinking, okay, how do we tweak this to make it better? I never liked the fact that there's even a first round bye. I hate that, because I think it's an incredible advantage going forward against these other teams, because how on earth do you end up knocking off one of these top 4 teams when you have to play an additional game? I just don't really see that happening very often. But anyway, we won't get to that point. While I don't disagree with conference champions getting automatic bids, I think that should matter, especially in a 12-team playoff. It absolutely needs to.
Yeah.
This year was kind of a case study in maybe they shouldn't be automatically placed ahead of everybody else. Kansas State played all their players in that game, and that looked rough. Utah, I will give a bit of a pass with Cam Rising getting injured.
Yeah.
They also didn't have Dylan Kincaid play, their best tight end, or their Clark Phillips, their best corner. Not that everybody else had injuries and opt-outs too, but your quarterback being knocked out is different. So I'll give Utah a little bit of a pass there. I think if you actually seed them more based on just how we rank them at the end of the year, there might be a few better matchups overall. Listen, I honestly would have been more than okay with a Penn State being in there. I thought it would have been very interesting in that type of style of playoff. USC would have been wildly fun to watch. They were in that game, just because they can't tackle, but they have Caleb Williams. I would have loved to see USC and Tennessee play. That would have been the first game, because Tennessee can actually play a little bit of defense, and USC's can't play any. So that kind of almost balances the scales.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Even with Joe Milton at quarterback, in all honesty, you saw what that Tennessee defense did against Clemson, and Clemson was clearly the favorite in that game. So I've reached the acceptance point of, okay, how do we ensure that we have the absolute best playoff in this scenario that we can? And while I think that you should automatically be in the dance, I don't think you should automatically get the bye for winning your
Yeah.
conference, if that makes sense. Because what if Purdue had won this year? I
Right,
mean,
that's the thing.
they're probably
It's
not going to be one of the top 4 conference champions,
right
so
because
it does fix it a little,
yeah,
but
I put
still.
ACC champ down at 10. They could have raised or lowered that, but like, relative strength. Yeah, again, if there's a weird upset at the end of the year,
Mhm.
like that's what I think we saw that. We saw
Right.
K-State and Utah do what generally people didn't expect to happen, and I think
Right.
this was a great year of like the way things ended up was
Right.
fun and made sense. You're gonna
Right.
give 3 loss each K-State and Utah buys as like an honor, like and leave. And we've talked about this 1 loss OSU, TCU, Alabama, like, or I guess 2 loss Alabama. Like you're gonna throw it, man. Heck, Alabama.
But
I hope they never
to
get
be
in.
fair,
But
Josh, we're
that's a
not even saying
relatively
they should be left out, because they,
no.
like, Kansas State and Utah won those games. They deserve to be playing, just
Yeah.
not a bye, perhaps.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'll make a point too, because I look at this list of games. The Penn State Ohio State game as a first round game is kind of gross to me. A rematch in the first
Yeah.
round. If you rematch in the
It's-
championship, then that's fine.
That's
Like
something
Ohio
different.
State,
Yeah,
Michigan
just starting
in the
it off as
championship
like a
this
regional
year
thing.
would have been super interesting. Now, maybe more from an Ohio State fan because hey, we had a chance to beat Michigan. Great, Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't think felt the same way. Just to be clear about that. But here's the thing, because I think I'm with you guys. I think USC Tennessee would have been super interesting. I even think Tulane TCU would have been great. Who knows? Or if you flip it around and like you get I don't know, whatever. The point is, I don't know if my warning to people is don't just look at what you could have gotten in the playoff as far as the matchups and thought, oh my gosh, why haven't we been doing this? Because yes, I think you're going to get some intriguing matchups in the playoffs. But I ask you, at what cost? Number one, the cost of the regular season, where you get a lot of those intriguing matchups, where you already had Ohio State and Penn State play.
Yeah.
Where you had Tennessee playing some really interesting teams. Number two, the injury thing that we talked about. So yes, I think in a vacuum, a 12-team playoff with some of the matchups, some of the intriguing matchups that you would see would be really interesting and in the moment, probably really good. But I would warn people, don't be a prisoner of the moment. Look at the entire season. At least for me, as a diehard college football fan, I want meaningful football in August, September, October, November, December, and January.
Yeah.
Now, I think the casual fan that tunes into the college football playoffs at this time of year really only follows college, maybe loosely. Maybe they watched Tennessee, Alabama. Maybe they watched, Georgia, Florida, Ohio State, Michigan, what have you. But the casual fan is maybe following the NFL more during the regular season, and they tune in during the playoffs and they think, well, why are there only 2 semifinal games? These were great. Why aren't there more? And the answer is, of course, because there was dozens scattered throughout the regular season from August to November. Again, I'm not trying to go down the same rabbit trail that I seemingly do every episode. You guys know where I'm going with this. I've said my piece many, many times. But that would be my thought on this. Josh, I appreciate you bringing us this kind of bracket. It's interesting. I mean, you look back at years past, you see many rematches, you see games that or even teams sneaking into the top 12 with 4 losses, and you're like, that's super gross. No one wants to see you there. But this is the life. This is the life that we'll be living in 2024, along with some other conference changes and probably some other stuff happening as well. All right, this is probably the longest episode we've ever done. So thanks for sticking with us. If you made it all the way, we hope you enjoyed it. I know there was a lot to cover. A lot happened between now and the last time we had the chance to sit down and record an episode. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'll just do a couple of quick shout outs real quick, just to stuff that we've got going on. Again, I mentioned it at the top, but if you like perusing the YouTube, as the kids say, we are there. We've got some fun videos coming out. We've got a video, again, like I mentioned, about Giannis. We've had some other fun videos. Some of our past podcast interviews. Josh brought up our interview with Joshua Perry. That's available on our YouTube channel. So we tune into that. We've got a video coming out this week on how the first down yellow line technology works. So if you don't know that, because I actually don't, I haven't written the script for it yet, but it's coming out in a couple days. So
they paint them on the field and you just kind of reset them every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So random stuff like that, that's available there on social media, of course. We got merch on our website. We got websites on our website. I almost said we have websites on our website. We have articles
Yeah,
on
we
our
do.
website. We're about to have an article posted there in a few days that will be kind of your crash course into college basketball. Because if you're like so many people, you've been so dialed into college football that there's been a lot of wild, crazy action happening in college basketball. So we'll have an article and probably a YouTube video as well to kind of catch you up, to get you set for the next 2 or 3 months of college basketball, all the way up until March Madness. So as always, we really appreciate you listening. Thanks so much for listening to Three Guys Talk. Now heading into our 3rd year of doing this, episode 93. We're quickly approaching episode 100, which is just kind of wild. So really, thank you. We had an awesome year in 2022. I should just say that. I think we hit like 35 or 36 states with the podcast. We had like 7 million views on our videos total, like just some crazy stuff. So I just want to say, if you didn't see it on social media, just want to say thank you for your support in 2022. And we're excited to bring you more shows and content in 2023. And we wish you the best new year, and we'll talk to you guys next week. All right, YouTube, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you guys jumping in the live stream. We'll be recording next week at Tuesday as well. So, we'd love to have you guys back. Thanks for tuning in.